Hi everyone, this is Paul Cooper with Totes and Notes. I'm bringing you this week's market meltdown. It's currently September 25th, 2018. So we're going to start off on Zero Hedge. The article is title is Nearly One-Third of U.S. Households Struggle to Pay Energy Bills. Pretty self-explanatory. You've probably all noticed that your energy bills, whether it's electricity, some type of fossil fuel or whatever, have been increasing steadily, and roughly a 1/3 of households struggle to pay their energy bills. They're now needing some type of assistance with them, whether it's from the government or through the utility company and donations there. Um, so that coupled with the fact if we have a pretty rough winter nationwide, could cause quite a bit of financial strain on the average household. So just something we'll have to keep an eye on, see what happens. This article here, it's kind of funny, but then it's also really sad. It's about this IRS agents. They were investigating a taxpayer for possible tax fraud. His wife was there. She was not being investigated. She has to use the restroom. A female agent would not let her use the restroom unless she was in there with her. So she went in there and watched the woman use the restroom the entire time, under the pretense that she may be trying to get rid of some evidence that her husband was using for tax fraud. Really bizarre case. They brought a case against the IRS force, and the government just completely backed him up and just went nuclear on him, started causing all these other charges. It's humorous when you first hear it, but then when you start to think about it, it's pretty sad. It basically just goes back to federal government employees. It's almost impossible for them to lose their jobs when they're done with probation. You want to know how I know? Because I am a federal employee and I'm working with people. I'm working with a guy right now that probably should have lost his job, but he's just getting a slap on the wrist, and it's sad. I had a supervisor that was terrible. Sexually harassed all these women that he worked with, and was constantly almost getting in fistfights with people, and the government just shuffled him around. So it's really sad that we can't have any government accountability on this. And then it was just really bizarre that someone would want to watch someone else use the restroom. Our next article actually has to do with real estate. It's talking about how millennials are flocking to cheap Rust Belt cities. It was either last week's episode or an episode before that. We talked about millennials spending more on rent, trying to get into trendy parts of town. So we kind of have two extremes. They're either trying to just, whatever, we'll just go all in on debt to try to finance a somewhat decent lifestyle that's at least fun, even if we don't buy a place or get married. And then the reverse side of that is that we have a bunch of people that are actually trying to get married and raise families and own, and they're starting to move to states like Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, and other Rust Belt states where housing's significantly more affordable. They can actually buy something nice, they can save money, they can raise a family. So we've got two extremes there, and I hope the trend continues. I hope people from my generation are able to move to places where it's a little bit more affordable and start having families. And, because I want that for people. And then the other nice thing is it'd be good for business for us because we buy in a lot of those states. All right, we're moving over to Housing Wire right now. And this was a pretty interesting article to me. It's talking about technology and how it may disrupt the real estate industry. And specifically, the part that I found interesting was driverless cars. If we start getting cars that are self-driving, how it may actually mess with the real estate industry because people won't need to live downtown. Because some of the appeal to living downtown, besides being trendy, is that you don't need a car, you can walk, you're closer to work. Well, this is talking about how the suburban home prices may actually increase because if you don't need to drive, while you do have that expense for a driverless car or a driverless Uber or whatever it will be, whether you own or rent or pay some type of cab fare, you'll get to have more time back for yourself, so you can actually be using that time to handle business while you're in the car, whether it's making phone calls or preparing presentations. So that I thought that was pretty interesting. It's kind of thinking outside of the box. And who knows if it'll actually happen, but I just found it really, really interesting because it's not a typical article or a typical topic, and it's kind of a roundabout fringe benefit as opposed to something direct. All right. Our next article on Housing Wire is talking about the FHFA debuts a new housing affordability metric. And the FHFA is the Federal Housing Finance Agency. It doesn't really cover what changed much in their metric, but the interesting part is that the affordability, as far as home affordability for middle income families, has stayed about the same, and the housing for that segment has increased. Low income housing has been declining steadily for the past few years, if not decades, and it's really creating a squeeze and a shortage on low income housing. It makes sense because if you're going to have to put money for an investment, if you could put it into middle or high income housing where there's more margin, why wouldn't you do that? As opposed to low income housing, brand new built, you're not going to save that much just putting cheap junk in there and then putting in tenants that are going to tear it up. And so most low income housing where the money's made is generally older housing, and it makes sense. Why wouldn't you focus on a market that's going to have you the most margin to make profit for your business and investing model? All right. Read this article on Housing Wire. Finance of America introduces first ever second lien reverse mortgage. I'm not really a fan of reverse mortgages. People tout them as a way for retired people to live a dignified retirement, get access to their equity and stuff. Honestly, I think it's just a way that people are fleecing the elderly. There are some rules generally when it comes to reverse mortgage, like they can't take the home, that you can never owe more than what the equity in the home is or what the home's worth, even if you take out more. But I'm not really a fan of them. I think there are better ways for us to take care of our elderly, and there are better ways for them to use that equity, either sell the home, get a HELOC, do something else. But basically what this is, as opposed to just getting a whole new mortgage where you have to pay off your first mortgage, they are now letting you keep your original mortgage, and you're getting a second mortgage that's no recourse, and that's the reverse mortgage part that will help you get access to your equity. I don't know if it's going to be very predatory towards people that want to use them, since they're no recourse, but I do think it's just going to flood the market with some newer products that are just junk mortgages. There's a lot of, non-prime, which is the new subprime, and I think this is just going to be another tool that they're using to try to make money originating stuff, and it's just going to end up compiling and making our economy more garbage as far as housing goes. So our last article is on from DS News, and it's what's driving default risk. So basically, our default rate is about 5 to 6 points higher than when it was during the 1990s, and they're thinking this is due solely to the local and national economic environment and politics and things like that. Increased rates, elevated mortgage defaults. There's a lot here that could be factoring in, but unfortunately, it's kind of vague. It doesn't go into specifics. It doesn't give you a good solid theory. It's just, hey, the default rate's 5 to 6 points higher, and these could be some issues. And my opinion is it probably is. The interest rates are rising. They're still traditionally fairly low. The biggest thing that I think is that the cost of living has just skyrocketed the past couple decades, and wages have been very stagnant. They're trying to say that the inflation rate and cost of living each year is only like 2%. And the fact of the matter is it's much higher. It's probably 4 to 6%. Because each year they tweak it to add or subtract things that they don't want from it. But anyone who's paying your energy bill, just like in that first article, our energy rates are increasing. Buying new vehicles are more expensive, food's more expensive. Just about everything right now is more expensive except for tech. If you're willing to wait for tech stuff to be out for 6 months to a year, then it's cheaper. But if you want to buy the new stuff, then it's expensive. Everything you need, just the staples, are more expensive year after year, and wages aren't increasing. So it's not good, and I've got to imagine that that's significantly contributing to the default risk, among other factors. That we keep seeing stuff that the economy is doing better, the employment rate is way down, but the jobs aren't quality, the pay's not quality, benefits aren't as good. So, yeah, and speaking of benefits, anyone who pays health insurance will notice that that's skyrocketed the past few years. It's just obscene how much it is. Um, yeah, I'm glad I've got a government job because my health care is actually fairly affordable compared to most people, and it's still expensive. So we'll cut the rant off there, and that's it for this week. If you have any questions, suggestions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll talk to you all later.